we're trying to fix a product for people who just aren't interested anyway. So like, it's like we're kind of wasting our time at this point.
For these people.
That's what I was saying. I don't think it's
we're kind of
nothing
wasting
wrong.
our time with it. And like we're saying, Anthony Edwards didn't take the mantle, or John Moran, or Zion Williamson, or whoever. But it's like you're actively ignoring the all-time great players that are playing currently in their prime. We're ignoring Giannis for the only reason is, we can't have a non-American face. We're ignoring Jokic, who won a championship 18 months ago, is having an all-time great offensive season. It's like, but he's not charismatic enough. Like, we're not even talking about the game at this point. Like, we're just talking about their media personality. Is like why we don't want people watching them more. It's like
it matters though, Mars, because we're talking about
building. It matters for the business model, and that's cool. But
we're talking about building a brand. 100%. At the end of the day,
I don't work for the NBA, so like, why am I so worried about fixing their product? Why am I so worried about fixing their business model? If their business model relies on American people having to buy into American athletes, I'm not gonna lie, I think their business model is stupid.
I do think that there are a lot of great athletes in the game today. I think there were great athletes back then, but I think that what we deal with in today's game in terms of the marketability of these athletes, I think that's the biggest thing. Who are we putting the camera on? Who do we want the league to look like? Because remember, we're talking about a business model here. What do we want the league to look like? Who are we putting the camera on the most? Who we want people to identify with? Because again, us up here, or the people that you see in the arenas in Chase Arena or in Madison Square Garden, those guys are already on the hook. What we're trying to get is your sister Pen, whose son like Steph Curry, and she don't know who Steph Curry is. But she doesn't really know who the Golden State Warriors is.
My sister's already obsessed with the game. But okay. I hear what you're saying. Like, look, I hear what you're saying. I think the end result is the same. I don't need to watch full basketball games to get the gist of what happened in a basketball game anymore because I have 10-minute highlights. That's not counting towards your ratings. If the game's a blowout, first of all, more three-point shots impact the game in one very serious way. There's more blowouts. There's way more blowouts. So if I already know the game ended, like the Memphis Grizzlies, Golden State Warriors game, you think I'm watching that? You think I'm watching a 50-point blowout unless Steph went off for or Ja went off for 60? Those are the things that move people. Now, I think that's a really, really big part of it, which is that there's not a reason to watch every game because it's already pretty clear from the Stars' perspective that these games don't matter. If you're load managing a November game, why should I care about a November game? Stars don't care about a November game. Why should I care about a November game? You know what I mean? Michael Jordan was box office because you had to watch. You didn't know what he was going to do. And it was the talk of the town. And you don't want to be the idiot at school the next day who didn't know what Michael Jordan did. You know what I mean? You don't want to be the dumbass at school that didn't know that Patrick.
Do these guys care more? Like when you talk about, I don't mean to cut you off, Pin, but do these guys care more about playing more than they let on in terms of the load management, sitting out? And with them sitting out, are they just sitting out like, hey man, I'm just collecting a check? Or do they really want to play and it's just not being broadcast that they want to play?
I mean, Scotty Barnes wanted to play yesterday. People can't stop ripping him, but he's injured. Shams said he was going to miss he's several weeks. He comes back a week and a half. He has 2 bad games, and suddenly half the Raptors fan base right now thinks he's a bum. So, I mean, maybe some guys don't want to ruin their brand. Maybe some guys.
This is what I'm talking about.
Some guys are trying to preserve the parlays. I don't know. Jonte Porter, shoot. Like, I mean, there's so much noise now. And I really, there's so much money, there's so much noise. I think the end result though is I'm seeing things that people care about. There are HBO series that people care about because the storytelling is great. People said, something I deal with in my industry all the time is like, oh, people are not going to the movies anymore. It's like, yeah, because they're streaming content. They are streaming great network series because the best directors in the world are working on series, not films right now. You just need to go where the greatest stories are because the greatest stories are what can hook you. And the truth is that people have a declined attention span today, more so than ever. Everything is hijacking dopamine. Every time you're on the phone. How many times have you been on the phone? I don't know about you, Cho, because you might have that OG GOAT attention span. But me personally, I'm on one thing and then suddenly I think about another thing. And the next thing you know, I'm like 4 minutes later, I've clicked on 18 different things. Well, how am I supposed to sit down and because the game length hasn't changed. It's still a 3-hour product or 2.5-hour product. Sure. Who has the patience to watch a 2.5-hour game that apparently doesn't matter? You know what I mean? Like, unless you're covering it, like I think
I feel like I'm repeating myself. I think it's the faces. It goes back to if you see something familiar, you might not want to go grocery shopping, but you know that your favorite grocer is there and the food is good. So you go and your attention span is on that. Same logic I feel like with basketball, if the faces are familiar and it's somebody that you gravitate toward, you're going to turn the game on just off the strength that this person might be a little bit bigger than the game. And because this person is a little bit bigger than the game, you want to see them more than you want to see the game, which draws you to the game.
Who is box office for you right now, apart from Jason Tatum? Who is it like, I gotta watch this guy every night?
The problem is the guys that are box office have been the guys who've been box office for years, and we haven't moved away from those guys. James.
So chill. You
KD.
think it's a matter of us seeing these guys too long?
That's
And nobody else came and taken the mantle.
I think we still on James. I still think we on KD. I still think we on Curry. I still think we on these guys, and we haven't moved on from them. That's why this is still going on. If those guys, if we moved on from them, we tried to move on with Anthony Edwards. We tried to move on with Ja, but it's just not working. It's not. So because James is still here.
Honestly, we tried to move on to them too quick though, and that's the problem. As NBA fans, our attention spans, we just so quick.
It doesn't help that those guys are still around too, Ron. That
definitely doesn't help. But it's like we try to move on to Anthony Edwards in his third year in the NBA. We try to move on to Ja Morant in his third year in the NBA. It's third year player
that's gonna. Ron, I mean, we did that with Dwayne Wade. He was in year 3.
Yeah, and we did that to Dwayne Wade after he went and won a championship.
Right.
We didn't do that to Dwayne Wade because he was smiling in the media and saying charismatic quotes.
But we were moving on
from Ron. D Wade went on a crazy run in 05 though.
Yeah, we were moving on.
That's what turned us on the way was that first run he went on.
Yeah, and then he backed it up. And then by that time, he was like, okay, Wade is the truth. By that time, you could see with your own eyes, okay, LeBron James is next. And LeBron James came in the league with all that hype. And then Carmelo Anthony was doing what Carmelo. Yeah, but it wasn't that though. Now look, Ant went on the run last year. Now if Ant comes and wins the championship this year, things would change. I think we got something. That's what D-Wade did.
That ain't happening.
Okay, so that's what
I'm saying. Hypothetically speaking, Ron.
Hypothetically speaking, but I'm saying like we can't crown guys if they're not going just based on their smile and the way that they talk and stuff like that. Like it's ultimately at the end of the day, it's your production and what you do. You got to be a winner in this league.
But don't you think that's a casual way of looking at things, though, yo? Like I don't need my favorite player to win a championship for me to be excited to watch him play.
Well, look, if that's not the case, then you better be like Jordan, and you better be just phenomenal. You better be like Shaq before he won his chip. You better be. We're asking for a star to be a star. You can't crown somebody a star if they're not an actual star.
And see that's the problem.
You're also asking for them to be American because we have Luka, Giannis, and Jokic just running around putting up all-time dominant seasons year after year, and no one wants to market them. So you're also asking for them to be US born.
I hate to step in and interrupt this intense yap session that you're currently watching, but I just have to inform you on all the amazing, spectacular, fabulous, endless ways to play and win over at Prize Picks. Basketball fans, I know the season is just tipping off. Yes, I know this. But you know what that means? It means that you have an opportunity to pick your favorite players and their matchups that are the most thrilling, and you can win money from these. With Prize Picks, you can play daily NBA contests and test your hoop knowledge by choosing the player projections and every single stat line imaginable to make your Prize Picks and take home some nice hard-earned cash. Are you a rookie in the game? Don't even sweat it. I got the playbook for you right here. All you have to do is download Prize Picks, use promo code PANEL, and you will get $50 instantly when you play 5 here with Prize Picks. So what are you waiting for? Download Prize Picks, use promo code PANEL, and join me as we break down all of our amazing daily picks right here on the panel. Prize Picks. Run your game, control your game, win your game. It's easy, baby. It's easy.
Well, but Mars, I mean, okay, it might be a fact for some people, but I don't need you to be a superstar for me to watch you play basketball.
Yeah, but Ox, you're like at this point, you're the exception. You're just gonna watch hoops because you enjoy watching hoops.
You on the hook, Ox.
And this is the thing, like I'm starting, the more like I hear this conversation, the more I'm starting to side with Ox. Like I'm getting to a point where like I just don't care what stupid people think at this point. Like we're trying to fix a product for people who just aren't interested anyway. So like it's like we're kind of wasting our time at this point.
For these people.
That's what I was saying. I don't think it's
we're kind of
nothing
wasting
wrong.
our time with it. And like we're saying, Anthony Edwards didn't take the mantle, or John Moran, or Zion Williamson, or whoever. But it's like you're actively ignoring the all-time great players that are playing currently in their prime. We're ignoring Giannis for the only reason is, oh, well, we can't have a non-American face. We're ignoring Jokic, who won a championship 18 months ago, is having an all-time great offensive season. It's like, but he's not charismatic enough. Like, we're not even talking about the game at this point. Like, we're just talking about their media personality. Is like why we don't want people watching them more. It's like
it matters though, Mars, because we're talking about building.
It matters for the business model, and that's cool. But
we're talking about building a brand. 100%. At the end of the day,
I don't work for the NBA, so like, why am I so worried about fixing their product? Why am I so worried about fixing their business model? If their business model relies on American people having to buy into American athletes, I'm not gonna lie, I think their business model is stupid. So I don't know why I'm trying to fix their business model instead of me doing what I can to say, hey, we have a really good product right now. Take the time out of your day if you're interested. We got 1,500 people in here. We have 1,500 people in here. If I can influence 1,500 people to go watch Cade Cunningham and what he's doing in Detroit right now, he's been amazing. Did you see what he did against Phoenix the other night? He beat Phoenix with Kevin Durant in the lineup. He was guarding Kevin Durant in the fourth quarter. Cade Cunningham. He's been amazing this year, but we're not talking about him. We talk about LaMelo Ball and what he's been doing for Charlotte, and all I've heard is that he's a shot-chucking three-point merchant. And we're like, LaMelo Ball has been amazing for Charlotte this year, but we aren't talking about him. Scotty Barnes, prior to his injury, had been really good for Toronto this year. But we don't talk about these type of players because I guess it's not cool to talk about them. So we're going to still talk about, why are the Lakers struggling? Or they win 4 games. Oh, are the Lakers championship contenders? Same thing with the Warriors. They start 7-1. Oh, the Warriors dynasty is still going. Then the Warriors start losing. Oh, what trades can the Warriors make? Like
the media cartel swiper.
At what point are we going to be like, okay, maybe we can't change the game in the big instance. That's down to Adam Silver and whatever suits they have in the NBA front office. But in the small scale, in the macro scale, we can at least talk about the teams that don't get love. We can talk about the Indiana Pacers starting to turn their season around. I know Ron probably don't want to talk about that. The Indiana have looked better as of late. We can talk about, like I said, Cade Cunningham. We can talk about how good Zach LaVine's been for Chicago without having to keep saying, what contender should trade for Zach LaVine? We don't need to keep bringing up Zach LaVine in trade talks just to talk about him. We should talk about the fact that he's playing really great this season. Same thing with the Orlando Magic and Paolo and Franz. Same thing with Tyler Hero, who's having a great year. Like, there's so many players and teams to talk about, but we talk about the same 6 recycled teams, and then we wonder why people aren't interested. It's like, all we do is talk about 6 teams. That's what we do. So I don't know. I'm kind of over trying to fix the NBA for Adam Silver with a business model that I think has been broken for 40 years.
Talk to us, Swiper.
What's up, Spurs fan number 1?
Yeah, so I think
Spurs cap.
Yeah, I think I've had this for years, by the way. I think that this is pre-Jeremy Sohan days, when they had nothing, no Baylor athletes, nothing.
Calling it Jeremy Sohan days made it worse.
Yeah, I went to Baylor. This is a known fact, so obviously this is going to mean something to me. Shout out Keontae George, future All-Star, by the way. I will.
All-Star?
No, he's good. No, in the Western Conference, I think he's nice. I think he could be an All-Star player one day, right? I'm saying if he continues to lead,
if a few things go right, I think
he could be a better version of Jamal Murray. I think he could be a better version of Jamal pre-ACL injury Jamal.
Lord. Swiper, can you proceed with your point though?
I am proceeding with it. I'm talking about a player you've never watched in your life when you never watched a Jazz game. So I think here's the thing.
I watched Keontae George in high school, fool. When you ain't know about him before. Before he signed to Baylor, I knew about Keontae.
Yeah, all right. I will say this, and Chill, you probably know this better than anybody else up here. Ron, I know is a football fan. I know that the other person in the bottom left is a little bit as well, but not crazy, and I understand why. Who's the best player in the NFL played for, Chill?
The best player in the NFL right now.
What city
Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
Minnesota.
Okay, what is the second best quarterback? Let's just the other top 3 quarterbacks in the league. What other cities do they play in?
Less than cities.
Buffalo.
Let's see. Buffalo, Josh Allen,
Cincinnati,
Joe Burrow in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. All right. None of these are blue chip cities. None of them. None of them. And some of these aren't even blue chip franchises. But the NFL, I think they have always prioritized the shield, and they have never, at least I would say in the modern era, they've never gone about the business of talking down about their own cities, their own franchises, and players within those franchises. Like, you don't hear Justin Jefferson needs to get out of Minnesota. Jamar Chase needs to get out of Cincinnati. Like, A.J. Brown was thriving in Tennessee, and then he got let go because of certain situations. I think the storytelling in the NFL around the teams is way better. And even when if you got a pillar in your city, the NFL will say, I don't give a dang where you are. If Jacksonville had Patrick Mahomes or any of them, they're getting airtime every single week, and they're going to be talked about like who they are, which is the best in the world. And I think the NBA has never been like that. But I also think that's a product chill. Remember, we had this debate during the PCL run. I think a topic chosen by you, one of the best hosts in the game. Who saved the NBA? And we did the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird thing. I think that once that happened in the 1980s, I think the NBA realized that we have to go big market. And in order to save the league, then they pivoted to the two biggest franchises in the NBA. And I think ever since they've been living off that same formula. And
they haven't pivoted in 40 years.
Well, think about what happened though, Ron. What happened right after that? Remember, Shaq went there after Orlando, and everybody loved Shaq, right? And then they got Kobe. And then remember, they drafted Paul Pierce in 96. Mars, was that 96?
98.
98. They drafted Pierce. Then they got KG in the middle of the 2000s. They got Ray Allen. They got Rajon Rondo. Like, they had a stack play. And so now the NBA
that was
is
12 years later, though, Swiper.
I know, but the thing is, even when, remember, Boston was down for a few years there.
Right.
And they were still getting played. Now, they weren't getting as much play as the Knicks. The Knicks were getting more play than them because they had like Ewing and John Starks and the rest of the squad, and they eventually got Antonio McDyess in the late 90s and all that. I just think the NBA has always relied on that formula because that's what has been best for them. So I think that the NBA now is trying to pivot with having the access to the NBA TV deals to now you can watch every individual team play. But the issue is now ESPN and Fox, Nick Wright even said this 2.5 years ago. Penn, you probably remember this when Nick Wright was talking about why, like, Jokic and Denver don't get more play on air and why there's like more negative takes. He was in the car, Ox, and he basically said, like, the ratings plummet when we don't talk about like the Lakers or LeBron or Steph or Golden State.
That's because these people, for that reason right there, Swiper, what you talking about? People always talk about they care about the underdog. No, you don't. You do not. No, especially when the underdog is on the big stage.
Parity sells worse too, Chill. If you have a super stacked team, those teams always sell better than when you have a lot of parity in the NBA.
It depends on where you are, because to your point, when you talk about the NFL, I mean, in the last 25 years, we've had 13 different champions. 13 different teams have won the championship. So if you live in a different city, you're under the impression, and that's not including the other teams that were in the Super Bowl for the first time. So if you're in another city, you're under the impression that my team can win it. If you live in Tennessee, my team can win the Super Bowl. If you're in like I said, Kansas City or when the Raiders were in Oakland, my team could win the Super Bowl. I mean, we've seen specific teams winning the NBA Finals. It's the Spurs, it's the Lakers, it's the Cavs, whatever. It's the Cavs, Spurs, Lakers, Cavs, Heat. Detroit was in there too.
Raptors.
Warriors. One more time.
Raptors.
I mean, that's not that. Now we have, over the course of the last 6 years, had 6 different teams win the NBA championship. Sure.
When's the last time that happened? Chill.
In the 70s.
In the 70s. The West era of
basketball. That was the last time that happened, where we had 6 different champions in the 70s.
Let me see trivia. Name them. Bucks?
So let's start with in 70. So the Knicks win it in the 69-70 season. The Bucks win it in 71. The Lakers win it in 72. The Knicks win it again in 73. The Celtics win it in 74. The Warriors win it in 75. Blazers win it in 76.
Yep.
I'm sorry, not the Blazers didn't win it in 76. The Celtics won it in 76. The Blazers win it in 77. The Seattle wins it in Washington wins it in 78. Seattle wins it in 79. Did I get that wrong? So I think we had 7 different champions in 9 years.
Chill's on the show right there, baby.
Right, so
he watched all those finals. He was at the games.
So we've had 7 different champions in 9 years. But to your point, Swiper, when you talk about parity, I mean, I'm around when I'm watching the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in the World Series, and the building isn't sold out. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, people care about parity, and they care about watching the mighty Yankees or the Lakers lose until they're not around anymore, and then you want those guys back. And I think Mars made a really interesting point about talking more about what's going on in the league. My rebuttal to that, Mars, is that's a valid point, but we do have to grow the league, because what we don't want to stay in a specific space where, okay, this is what the league is now, and this is all that the league is going to be. The league has to grow, and we do have to get better players. And in order to get better players, in order to get better quality of play, we got to get better players. So I don't want to just stay with the certain demographic that we have. That's why the business doesn't grow if we just stay right where we are. That's why we're trying to branch out to get different people.
But is it true that just in general, people are more wanting to just be entertained than they are wanting to watch basketball?
I think they've always been like that, Ox. I don't think that's something that's changed.
I think that it was a time when could be entertained by watching good basketball, as opposed to, you know what I'm saying, just getting entertained by just all the extras around basketball, the listening to, like, I don't even listen to them dudes on TNT like that. Like, and if you think I'm about to just sit down and listen to them at halftime, I'm not.
Maybe that might be the problem. This brand of basketball to the masses isn't entertaining, and that's the issue that they have with it. You know,
we got nostalgia goggles about how people consume basketball in the past. It's always been about, oh, this is exciting or this is not exciting. It's not like everyone in the 70s and 80s, from what I understand, is just sitting there like, the X's and O's are so brilliant. No, they're being entertained. Okay,
once again, when I make these statements, I'm not really talking about just like the masses. My first initial statement, yes, it's like, are people more wanting to just be entertained, or people want to watch basketball? Me, I can be entertained by basketball as opposed to the extras. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying?
You can't market the NBA to ex-professional basketball players.
Basketball, sure.
Right. But once again, I'm talking about. So I went from that to saying, like, for me, I can just watch basketball. I like basketball as opposed to the extras, and, you know what I'm saying, having to be entertained by other stuff than just watching basketball.
How many times have you come on the show and said you're done with the NBA? How many times?
Right, but that's what I'm saying, though, Pin. Like, it's not that I'm done with the NBA because of the extras, because of the guys that are talking about basketball. I'm getting done with the NBA because I feel like it's not really about basketball anymore. It's more about entertainment. It's more about what's gonna get you know,
clicks and views,
more clicks, instead of us just playing basketball. It's not really just basketball. It's more so. You know,
all right, so Ox, answer this question for me then, Penn, really quickly.
I'm real picky with it, Penn. I'm really picky about it.
100%, I can definitely get with that, because you know what bad basketball looks like. You know what good basketball looks like.
Bad basketball to me,
right? To you in particular. There's a reason why you turning the game off in the second quarter, because I don't want to watch this shit. This isn't good basketball. Not because Zach LaVine or anything. No, this just isn't good basketball. I get that part, 100%. My question is okay, Mars, who should we be talking about in December of 2024? Who are we not talking about that we should be talking about more, in your estimation? Who do you think because I'm going to tell you right now, Mars, we need to be talking about the Houston Rockets way more than we do. We don't talk about the Rockets enough as much as we should. We should be talking about them way more than we do. They on to something down in Houston. I love what they're doing. I love that young core. Jabari Smith, I think he's shooting like 41% on the long ball over the last month.
Don't you see the problem with what you're doing here, Cho? Is you're trying to construct a narrative. Narratives are born of natural interest.
Like sport. Are you saying in sports in particular?
Yes.
Okay. No.
Narratives can be dug up. Narratives can be created.
No. As a historian, no. That's just untrue.
I think Chill is just trying to put a spotlight on NBA teams. I don't think he's trying to.
Yeah, you look. The NBA tried. Hold on. The NBA tried to put a spotlight on Victor Wembanyama, right? They put him on the NBA app before he even got to the league. That was unprecedented, right? They were trying to sell the app, and they were trying to get people to really invest in the longer term story of this kid. right now, maybe the NBA will start doing a similar push for Dylan Harper and Cooper Flagg. Maybe the year after they'll do something similar for AJ DeBonsa. But at some point, you cannot push something that people don't want to watch. And let me tell you something. Everyone tuned in to watch Wemby's first few games. What did they see? Jeremy Sohan running point, and they were like, click off. I'm done. I'm done. I ain't watching this shit. And this dude is taking like 15 threes. He's possibly one of the most marketable athletes in sports history when you think about the optics of it. He's an international player in a domestic league. He's 7'5". We've never seen anything like it, and they've completely botched it. But it's not they didn't botch it by themselves. You can't force feed people this stuff. You can't be like, oh, let's talk about Wemby a lot. People turn it off. They have other options. You can't be like, you know what we really need to talk about? We need to talk about Fred VanVleet and the Houston Rockets and what they're doing. Shit, nobody wants to see this.
No one's saying.
I appreciate the Houston Rockets. I like the Houston Rockets.
Turn the Rockets into the Lakers, where that's all we talk about. We're saying talk about these teams also. Talk about Evan Mobley's improvement this season. Also, talk about the Boston Celtics, the reigning NBA champions. That's fine. Talk about Karl Anthony Towns' season. Talk about how the Magic is still managing to stay afloat without their two best players.
Three now.
Yeah, Jalen Suggs. Two.
Talk about players who are not genuinely fun to watch. Vince Carter was box office. Okay. Kobe Bryant was box office. Sure. Michael Jordan was box office.
Russell Westbrook is box office. 100% he was.
I don't think. I would put him in that tier, but sure.
He said who? He said who?
Russell Westbrook was box.
He said you wouldn't put him in that. What are you talking?
No, Russell Westbrook was good for nothing. He just existed.
You think Russell Westbrook was as popular as Vince Carter?
This is why
you can think he's a better player.
Penn, that's what I'm saying. Penn, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe in another world, I don't know where you were when I was coming up and I was watching. Russell Westbrook was more of a draw than Kevin Durant was. So like I think people need to realize that like Westbrook was the engine because of how again the NBA loves high flyers.
Who I compared him to?
Vince Carter is very similar.
Kobe Bryant. I didn't compare him to Latrell Sprewell and Allen Houston and Reggie Miller.
Latrell Sprewell was not nearly the box office draw that Russell Westbrook was. No, he was not. And I understand what you're talking. No, I understand your point. What your point is your point is box office and these players in comparison to box office.
Player because I don't know.
And that's what Russell Westbrook was. At one point, Russell Westbrook was a must-see.
Oh my God,
he was 100%. You think
how are we capping about Russ? Like I don't know. I didn't realize this was a take. Honestly, I didn't realize that was a take at all.
I feel like we're getting away from the point
of Russell Westbrook.
Still respect Latrell Sprewell though.
No, I love
he was cold, but like there's only a few of us that love Latrell like that, though. To be honest with you, bro. Like,
I love
Latrell. Real ones love Latrell.
I mean, Nick's Latrell was it? You know what I mean? And then he had the choking incident and all that stuff. He was the type of dude you went to the barn with. Yeah, that's my dog.
But back
what
to
I'm saying is that Vince Carter led the league in All-Star voting for like 6 years. Did he not? Like he was the most popular basketball player in the world.
Because he had a whole country behind him.
That's what I'm saying,
no,
bro. Yeah, he had
an entire nation behind him. Canada. Canada can barely vote for their own players. Come on, man. And half of Canada
can't vote in Canada.
Come on, Penn. Now you're capping, Penn. Now you're capping.
Y'all can't vote in Canada? Why you say barely?
Oh my God, man! You think a country of 33 million people is pushing at the time 34 million people is pushing a player over when the rest of the world equals like what 6 billion, 7 billion.
Well, you still have the rest of the world. So Vince Carter was who he was, and then he had a whole country to back him. Because the same thing with Yao Ming.
But even All-Star voting,
he had a whole country
Vince Carter was who he was because every time ESPN played his highlights, ratings went up.
Penn, I'm gonna put it like this:
jumped over a dude's head in the Olympics.
Vince Carter was box office. He was not more box office than Shaq. He was not more box office than Kobe. He was not more box office than KG. He was not more box office than Allen Iverson.
Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett was in Minnesota, my bro. That's the only reason.
I'm talking about if you watch the game. Well, if you factor all that in, yeah. But if you watch the game play, it was more enjoyable to watch.
Now I will tell you this: Chill and Penn. What you might remember, Ox, you too, Ron. Yep. Penn, the show that they used to do it was 30 for 30 before 30 for 30. You know what I'm talking about? It was like on through the line or something like that.
That Brian Gumble shit?
No, I was talking about it was on
because they had Kevin Garnett had one. You know what I'm talking about, Chill.
Yeah, it was called it was on Fox. beyond the
lines.
Yeah, I remember that.
No,
Yeah,
not
bro.
beyond the lines.
Hey,
beyond the,
Hey,
beyond
to Penn, that's why I'm supporting you. I think Vince, he just already had it. I didn't get on Kevin Garnett till I saw that mess. And when he was in high school, and then all the stuff that he went through, and then eventually led him to the league and all that other stuff. So, like, again, I would say this, Penn, the storytelling around those players with that show, with the 30 for 30, with the documentaries, the DVDs. I'm telling y'all, I had the His Airness DVD pack, chill. I watched that mess almost every day during the summer. Yeah. Michael Jordan, you couldn't. Michael Jordan could do no wrong in my eyes. Couldn't do wrong.
I think everyone who was around then could literally tell you about that DVD,
right.
like frame to frame, VHS back then, frame for frame.
Right.
It's the player choice way. Yeah, them boys don't get it started. The player choice way. Yeah, the player choice way. Come and switch lanes into the player choice way.